Hi everybody, I was waiting for Josh to say I could start, but he didn't, so I'm starting now. So good afternoon to all my English home language students today, and we're going to look at listening practices in the first presentation and speaking in the next one. So you can do a double whammy this time. So good to speak to you all. Thank you for the emails and sharing your thoughts with me. It's always good to interact with students, whether it be email or however you choose to get hold of me. So welcome to week 4. Here we go. Well, as we can see, today is listening, and what kind of listener are you really? But before we proceed, I want to first look at my task completion table. As you can see, the numbers doing home language FET have grown to 25. So there's quite a few of you. And for senior phase to 37, so quite a few doing HL home language in the senior phase. The first 3 columns after total number you'll see are my quiz 1, 2, and 3. These are the online tracking learning events that you need to do. They all count towards your participation mark. The quiz 1 was the reflection. As you can see, there are 25 FET students and only 10, I should have colored that in red as well. 10 of you have done it. These are still open until the 8th of March, so you still have time to get it done. The quiz 2, which is the short questions on the curriculum docs, 21 have done. Quiz 3, that was last week's, only 6 have done it. Wonder why. So this is also, I've extended, it was supposed to close on the 28th, and I think I've extended it to this Friday. So you have until Friday to complete quiz 3. These are all online tracking. It's to determine who is listening and who's participating. So please just check this out. If you've got any queries, get back to me. The CAPS 1 and 2 readings. CAPS 1 was from week 1. CAPS 2 was from week 2. You can see very few of you have done this. I'm not too sure of the reason. Maybe you just don't have time, but you have until the 8th of March to complete that, and that is the final date. Same with the mind map and the case study, which is in the last column. All of those are red, and that means danger. That means that there needs to be more coming through, more submissions. For senior phase, I can see that you are generally getting there, right to quiz 3. The majority seem to be doing the jobs. I'm still not sure why so few of you have done the reflection 1, just to tell me about yourself, where you come from, your ideas. So it's a written piece, maybe because it's something you have to write, maybe you're more reluctant to actually do that, whereas the rest are quizzes, which might be a bit easier. Also, the CAPS 2 document, although a lot of you have got back to me about CAPS 2, and I've had quite a few submissions, 8 of the 37, not too much. But I think you all need to get going with that, because it also closes next week, as well as the mind map and the other document. The quiz 3 is now, quiz 4 is now today, it's being launched, so you need to do that as well. So it's growing. So with assignment 1, I've also opened that in week 4 for your lesson plan. Remember, the 2 lesson plans you have to do while you learning teaching practice. One is a teaching a course, which you will do the lesson plan for, and the other one will be your own design. If you go and look on ECI, you'll see there is the slide for the lesson plan submission now, but I've added in today, thank you Jenna for that, the Turnitin submission as well. This will let me know, lesson plan 1, lesson plan 2, what the plagiarism rate is like. So if you've decided to copy a lesson plan from someone else, Turnitin will show you. If you decide to hand in the same lesson plan for both, for SP and FET, it'll also show me that as well. So remember, you've got different courses you're doing, so make sure you don't submit the same things all the time. And then your online tracking quiz as well, based on listening and speaking. Today's learning event, that'll be the normal 10, I think there's 6 or 5 questions on each. That should be pretty easy to do. Right. There's a Turnitin, what it looks like. You can see there's a part 1 and part 2, so submission for part 1 and the submission for part 2, and I'll get the reading for that. Okay, so we're now in unit 2. We've moved away from unit 1, and we're going to look at communicative skills in the classroom. Next week, you'll see the communicative teaching approach. I'm doing that as a canned class next week. But this week, we're going to look at oral lessons and listening tasks. So the practices we need in the classroom for, especially for first semester, we're going to look at reading, oral, and listening, whereas we look at writing, grammar, and drama, poetry, and literature in the second semester. We're looking at these two this week. And that's all in chapter 8 in Ferreira. There's Ferreira. If you look at chapter 8 on listening, you'll get a bit of information there as well. Okay, let's just do a bit of a check here. How do you listen? Okay, yeah, we've got Lucy and Charlie Brown having a conversation, as I always do. And she says in frame 1, so what do you think? And he says, what difference does it make? You never listen anyway. So in frame 2, she says, I was just making conversation. And he says, when you make conversation, you have to listen too. And she says, you do? All right, so yeah, when you chat to somebody, you actually have to listen to them. Might be hard work, but you have to do that. So look at these visuals. What kind of listener are you? Are you totally distracted by your mobile all the time? Thinking about your day ahead, or just totally bored, not thinking about anything, not listening at all? Or are you a bit like this, so busy with other things that you can't really pay attention to what the person is saying? Look at the delight on the one character's face there when she looks at her cell phone. Someone's got their laptop and their cell phone in front of them. So totally distracted, not listening to anything. Or are you a bit like this? When she starts speaking, he just thinks blah, 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 blah. So don't you look at the body language there as well? He's leaning forward. His eyes are shut. Leaning forward should indicate that you're listening, but I think if you look at the way he's holding his head up and his eyes shut, he's not concentrating at all. Or do you just pretend that you're listening the whole time? You're not listening. But let me tell you something now. Teachers and other people who teach a lot will soon tell you that they can see when their students are listening or not listening, or paying attention and not paying attention. Their eyes become glazed, they look elsewhere, they smile because they've got their cell phones on. They don't normally smile at your lesson. So you realize that they are not really listening to you as well. Okay, I've got a Menti for you, menti.com. The pin is 5430. So once this is over, I'd like you to go to the site and give me 2 things that you would say show that you are good at listening. So just any 2 things, it's a word cloud. I'll show you the results next week that show that you're a good listener. There are 2 slides there, but don't worry about the second slide. I will maybe make that another Menti so you can actually answer that. That's a multiple choice question as well. Okay, so that's your fun task and I will monitor that. Well, here's the listening checklist. I want you to think about how often you do this when you're listening. You decide beforehand that this is a boring topic. So you've already decided that listening is boring, so you're not going to listen to it. There's a good chance you're not going to hear anything. You criticize the speaker. You don't like the way she speaks. You don't like the way he speaks. You don't like the way he says that. You don't like the way he dresses. And so you criticize the speaker, and there's a good chance you're not going to listen to anything that they say. You overreact by disagreeing to what everybody says. Are you that kind of person? Do you disagree all the time? Or you only want the facts. You don't want to hear how this person got there or how he felt. You just want the facts, what actually happened. So you discount a lot of what they say. You find it hard to decide what is important when people tell you something. Why did you tell me that? Or what is the reason? You can't decipher what they're trying to tell you. Or you fake attention, pretend you're listening. You give in to distractions. This little mobile, okay. That little beep that comes on, and you are inclined to give all your attention to that. Or something's happening outside and you check what's happening outside the window. Or if it's too difficult, you don't really like that poem or that person, so you don't really listen to them because it's too difficult to listen to. What about if you become emotional about certain words people use, but you don't like them to use those kinds of words? If they use a term that you don't like, then you become antagonistic and you don't want to listen to them. If they speak about, so I think of the topic, they speak about disease and you don't like disease, or they speak about washing your hands, you don't think that's important, you might become very aggressive towards them. Or you'd rather waste thought speed by daydreaming. So you're thinking about what you're going to do tonight, what you're going to eat, what you're going to read, when you go to movies, what your brother's doing, what your mother's doing. So you're not really paying much attention. And this is a bad time. It's time for doing gym and going out. So why do you want to listen anyway? Right. So this is the effect of when you don't listen. People become quite frustrated because a lot of can be learned through listening carefully to other people. We'll look at that now. So just remember that images, if you're trying to get someone to understand something, it'll go into their long-term memory. But if you just use words all the time, it goes into the short-term. So often you might say to somebody, but I told you that yesterday. And they'll say, well, I don't really remember. The teacher says this all the time. Don't forget to go to page 26 and do the task for tomorrow. And the student comes the next day, not done. They didn't hear, they've forgotten. Whereas perhaps if she'd given them a picture or something like that, or some kind of visual, they might have remembered. I'm not sure. Interesting factors about if you're going for an interview, you might think all your well-chosen words will get you the job, but in fact, it might just be your body language, how you stand, how tall you are, how you smiled, how you sat down, how you shook that hand, the gestures you use, as well as how you speak, how beautiful your voice was, how deep it was, or how high it was. Those things people can remember more so than your actual words. Good thing is that most probably is only your first sentence and your last sentence they will remember, nothing else. So that needs to be getting those images going through if you are trying to persuade someone to give you a job. Okay, right, let's look at the listening process. What actually happens when you're listening as part of the theoretical background of what happens when you listen. So the first thing is someone speaks or shares something with you. So the message is coming to the listener from the speaker, but it first has to get through some external interference. It might be heat, it might be noise outside, it might be poor bandwidth, it might be faulty speakers. It's got to get through all of that. Then there might be internal interference in the listener. They might be feeling sick, emotional, distraught, concerned about something, worrying, and the good chance is then they're not going to hear what you say. If you are very emotional or you just had an accident or something, you're not going to hear much of what is being said. Right. Eventually, the sound waves will get to your ears, and you all hear something is actually happening by your ears, but that is not actually listening. That is hearing sounds, and those hearing of sounds doesn't actually mean that you're hearing anything. You're starting to make out that somebody is speaking now. Then you'll start paying attention. You'll start thinking, oh my word, I'm selecting sounds. I can hear those words. They were saying test. I must start listening. I've got to do this. So you start giving attention to what people are saying. Then you start understanding, because you interpret and you evaluate the message. And this leads to memory. You're going to store what you've heard. And then only when you respond back to the source will they know that this process is completed. So if you have a look at this diagram, you go from receiving the sound to understanding it in your brain. You need your brain for that. To respond to remembering it, to evaluating it, to feedback, and then responding back to the source. So feedback is so important. You have to show that you acknowledge whether it is a nod or a word or a question. All right. Let's quickly look at listening and learning, how they are different. Well, hearing is quite a passive thing. You don't have to be wonderful to hear. Most people who've got normal hearing or ears can actually hear, though even those with using audio supports or hearing aids should be able to hear. All right, so but it's passive. Sound waves come into your ear, stimulate the sensory receptors, and you can hear. So someone saying blah, 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 you're not doing wonderful things if you can hear what they are saying. However, listening is more active. It's more purposeful. It's a systematic response to a message. It requires you to be involved in what is being said. You have to answer, you have to respond. And so the person listens and hears and responds. So what about school? How much time is spent on listening? How often are you taught how to listen? I don't think you are. But within a school environment, you're going to spend about 45% of your time actually listening, which is quite a long time of your day. Speaking is the next amount of time. I think some students speak more, 30%. Reading is 16%, so not that much. I would have thought more. You're going to spend more reading. Maybe in higher education, you're going to read more. And then writing, very little. So most of the time in school, I think a lot is given to reading and writing, then speaking, and very little to listening. Here's another table where it shows listening at 24%, speaking at 20%, which I think is maybe a better connect, and reading and writing only as 9 and 8. And all the other things that we spend our time doing digitally, yeah, they've got TV, 8%, it could be YouTube on your phone, the radio, music, tapes, that is CDs. I don't think people do that anymore. The telephone, making calls, email, internet. I think maybe even that is even higher now. So listening is still the most, and people don't actively learn about listening. But in fact, you can learn 85% of everything if you listen properly. So if you're in a classroom and you listen effectively, 85% of what you hear, you can actually remember. There's some interesting facts about speed of what we speak at. People speak at the rate of 133 to 188 words a minute. I sometimes speak too fast, so maybe I veer on the higher side. But if you speak too slow, people also become quite bored. Listening, we listen from 125 to 250 words, so we're listening more or faster than we're actually speaking. So if someone's speaking, you often know what they're going to say because your brain has already processed that, and you're listening faster than what they are speaking. We are reading quite fast, 200 to 230 words a minute. I don't know if you tested your reading speed. Maybe you're reading at 300 words a minute as a higher education student. But our brain, this phenomenal organ, is processing at 600 words a minute. So our brain is able to comprehend extensively. That's why if you put a PowerPoint up the brain, you've already read all of this and you've comprehended, even though I've spoken you through it, you know exactly what's going on. So a quarter of your brain is only used for listening, and that becomes the problem because 45% of your brain is not working, whereas it should be. So we need 85% to listen effectively, and we can learn from it, but we're only using a quarter of our brain. 75% of our brain is not being used. Oh, my maths is a bit bad today. All right, 25% is only being used. So are you listening now? We have to become active listeners. So we listen not only with our ears, but with our eyes, our mouth, our hands, and our body. If you look at the bottom here, there's a YouTube, which you can go look at, which is a whole little slot, about 2.5 minutes. I will upload the PowerPoint afterwards, and you can access the link there on what active listening is. So you have to become active listeners in the classroom, and we've got to encourage our students to become active listeners. And that means that they have to think about their whole body when they are listening, that their brain must be thinking, their eyes must be looking, they must be making eye contact. The ears should be hearing, their mouth must be quiet. You can't speak while you're trying to listen. Shoulders facing the person, hands still, feet still. So if you are walking around and doing all kinds of other things, you can't listen. So this is what we call deliberate listening strategies that we can implement in the classroom. We're going to focus on understanding and analyzing information, and that means taking notes is so important. So if we've read something to the class, a paragraph, ask them to note what they think is the most important thing that they've heard. So that'll help them to actively listen to what you're saying. Or that they ask questions about the first paragraph. Another way to get them to show that they are listening to what you're doing. To analyze what you're saying, do they agree with it or don't they agree with it? Why? Makes them listen. Summarize. Okay, you say, I've said this to you today. Now make a summary of about 30 words of what you think I said. Those things will make them, force them to take notes, ask questions, and to get an effective summary. The other things you can do to connect to the speaker is to maintain eye contact. If you're looking out the window or down at your cell phone, you're not connecting with the speaker. If you're creating a receptive climate, that the room is comfortable, they've got chairs, there's no loud noises, that is a receptive climate. There's no distractions in the room, and you smile and you nod at the person. So that shows that you are making a special effort with the speaker. If you're sitting there with a scowl on your face, and a big angry look on your face, no one's going to really connect with you. So that smiling posture is quite important. Right, let's look at the CAPS document. The CAPS document says that you should be able to listen for information like instructions, directions, but as well as enjoyment, that you have a piece about singing or about dancing and you enjoy that kind of activity, so that would be enjoyment. But that you can respond appropriately, whether it be a counter argument or that you are going to critically say that this is not feasible in this situation. So you have to have some kind of comment on it. You're not just going to listen. So learners need to weigh up the information that they've listened to, assess it, and not take everything at face value and accept it. Not just to be yes kind of students, that they must say why they say, what is their opinion, what is their attitude to this? Do they disagree with it? Why? To ask those opinions of them. So the CAP listening document says you need to integrate listening into all lessons. The CAPS document says listening and speaking is only 1 hour of the 9 hours in a 2-week cycle. So you need to bring listening in actively into the classroom as well to ensure that students are listening. You can have intensive listening where they're listening for details. You can ask them to scan and say, are these words there? They have to look quite carefully into the material. Or is it more just to get the general idea of what's going on, their global listening? So what would you say the main idea of this paragraph was? Just a global understanding of that, but to generally actively do this in the class. This is from the CAPS document, this little insert, and we're going to quickly look at this. There's pre-listening activities. There is listening during the listening, and there is post-listening as well. So these are the 3 different stages in the listening process if you're planning a lesson around it. Then there are different kinds of listening. If you're listening for specific information of how to upload a YouTube video. I was looking today on how to import Moodle tasks. So those are instructions I would look at. If I was listening to a YouTube, I have to listen to the detail of that. Listening for critical analysis and evaluation. How am I going to give my opinion on this information? I need to listen to very carefully what they are saying. Listening for appreciation and interaction, to appreciate, we spoke about aestheticness of information and of text. How can we show our appreciation? Why did we like something? How did we appreciate it? Right, so if we conduct a listening lesson, we need to have a pre-listening stage where we try and use authentic materials to establish the context. So if you are speaking about the coronavirus, let's stay on topic, you might have a world map showing all the different areas where the coronavirus is now evident. Statistically, those are quite nicely available. Then you could probe their knowledge of it. What do they know about it? What is their opinion about it? I think many people have got many opinions about it. What about them bringing the South Africans back from Wuhan? Let's talk about that. Let's get a piece of reading material about that. What's going to happen? Is this the right thing to do? So you could probe it like that. So in the pre-listening stage, you would ask questions. What do they understand? What is their prior knowledge? Show visuals to make sure that they understand what the content is about. And then ask them to share their experiences. It's very much like a nice introductory type part of a lesson where you can hook the students into what the task is going to be. The during listening stage, this is where they actually engage with the material. They might read it once or twice, depending on how often you want them to read it. You might put them into groups. Each group will look at a different paragraph. It depends on how you want to divide the task up. And then you would provide different kinds of activities to motivate them as they interact with the material. Something like true-false questions for each paragraph. You might have two true-false. Is this true or is this false, depending on paragraph, or is it not given? Multiple choice type questions. They've got to scan. Is this mentioned? Ticking items in the list. Which of these items are mentioned in the article? This motivates them to actually read and to listen. Post-listening is after they've worked through the materials. You would discuss the answers, what they've provided in the other activities, what problems they experienced, what was difficult for them, what was challenging. And you'll assess who's listening, this listening in conjunction with get them to do something. Production is, remember, is so important, not just passively receiving, that they can speak, they can role play something or do an oral presentation response about what they've been listening to, or they can write something. So give them a chance to speak or write afterwards so they can show the information what they've achieved from the text. Okay, using quotations from the listening text or writing a continuation of the text, what happened afterwards, which is quite a nice way to finish off a task like that. Okay, right, here's a task that you can try out. I've just included this at the end of this presentation. Get to pairs. There's also in threes if you wanted to. Especially with someone that you don't know so well, not your buddy, but your buddy knows everything about you, then speak about 2 minutes on a topic. It could be about your hobby, something you're interested in, some interesting item of news, but it's a long time to speak if someone's going to time you for 2 minutes to see how much you can say, and then your partner will simply listen to what you are saying. Then your partner will have to paraphrase what you've said. Not make judgments or be critical of what you said, but try and paraphrase what your information was. Then you must analyze this interchange. Was the speaking partner able to communicate effectively? Was the person speaking able to share those ideas? And how well did your listening partner listen? So you could use this as a class activity, and students could actually write their answers to that as well. This is rate your listening effectiveness. I'm going to upload this on ECI as a task for you as well, so it might be easier to do, which is quite fun, I think, and you could use this in your classes as well. There are 10 different habits of listening here, and you have to rate what you are as a listener. For instance, the first one, tuning out of uninteresting subjects. Do you almost always do this, or do you seldom do this? Number 10, you waste the difference between decoding rate and speaking rate. That means you are speaking and you're not decoding. How do you often do that? So you need to think about all your answers. Then you're going to score yourself, and almost always will get 2, and almost never will get a 10 score. And then if you are below 70, that you will need training in listening because you're not a good listener. If you get between 70 to 90, you are a good listener, you listen well. And if you've got 90 and over, not many people get that, or they might be liars or extraordinary listeners. The word listen contains the same letters as the word silent. So sometimes it's best to be silent and to listen. So here's another check. For the same quiz, go to someone that you know well, a parent, a friend, a spouse, a partner, and ask them to score you. They might be a bit more objective than what you were. And this feedback enables you to become aware of your listening habits, which you do not know that you've got. So listening to hear and not listening to speak, that might be something you need to think about. We are so often thinking about what we want to say that we forget to listen. Right, so listen up, and it's always time to listen in the classroom. What's next? We're going to quickly look at speaking now. So I'm going to change this presentation to my speaking presentation. I'm just going to move out of here. Okay, I think I'm back. Okay. Okay, I'm back. A bit of a hiccup there, but hopefully Josh can still hear me and be back on track with our next.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thanks, Josh. All right. Okay, so we're on to the second presentation after that. This has been a technologically challenging afternoon for me. We're going to look at speaking practice. You'll see that the PowerPoint says both home language and first additional. That's fine because both of these techniques and practices are the same for both first additional language and for home language as well. And it is week 4. Right, so same thing as I said before. This is unit 2. We look at orals and listening. We've just looked at listening, and now we're going to look at speaking, which is in Ferreira chapter 9. So as my hook or my introduction, if you're thinking about presenting, how do you feel about that? Do your legs feel like jelly when you have to get up and speak in front of a group? Or are you wildly excited about speaking in front of a group? Do you feel like the next words that are going to come out of your mouth are going to be the dumbest words you've ever uttered as a human? Yes, and sometimes you've got no control over that because you say things that are stupid, and it's not like writing. You can't just take them back, and this might make a lot of people fearful and anxious about doing presentations. But remember that a survey has found that the primary fear, rating even higher than death, was the dread of public speaking. So if you feel a bit nervous about public speaking, well, there's quite a few that are part of this throng. But remember, public speakers are made, not born. You can practice and become an amazing speaker just by doing the right things, practicing, and practicing, and you can become amazing at doing presentations. You're not born to do that, okay? You are practicing to do that. So what does CAP say about speaking? They say students have got to be aware of the speaking process, how to plan for it, researching what you're going to say, how to organize your speeches, practice your speeches, and then finally present your speeches. Okay. You have to know about the features and conventions of oral communication and text, what projection is, what pace is, what eye contact is, what audience is, what introductions are needed, how are you going to conclude, how are you going to ask questions, timing, visuals, all of that is quite important. However, if you think about the teachers, if you want our students to acquire more speaking skills, we need to explicitly give it to them. Yes, and we have to give them opportunities to apply these in class. So you can't just speak about presenting. Students have to actually present. They're not going to learn how to do it otherwise. So we need to often talk less in the classroom and give learners a chance to speak more. And this can be done through actual formal or informal presentations, or giving them daily opportunities to speak in the classroom, whether in groups, whether as a class, whether individually. Encourage them to speak in the class. And this can also be through different ways we can do this. I'm going to look at a study of teacher talk that was done in Pakistan recently. And this is what they found about teachers speaking all the time in the classroom. Nguyen, 1991, says it's good for teachers to speak in the classroom because 78% of teacher talk time gives the students live target language input. That means the students are hearing the target language, they're hearing English in the classroom. Just think about this. If it's 70 to 80% of the time the teacher is talking and not using the target language, you're depriving the
Hi, Marcel, can you hear me? Apologies for that, everyone. We will work on getting the stream back. Hi, Marcel, welcome back.
Josh, I don't know, my internet has just gone down. I've just connected through my phone. I'm not sure what's going on.
Across the country, we're having some issues as well. Don't worry, I've stopped my screen share. You can start sharing again and continue where you were.
Okay, so it's like bad, hey?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get there again. Okay, is that all right?
Or up and running again.
Okay, thanks, Josh. Right, we're into the grips of power load, down shedding, and so whatever happens. Anyway, I'm just going to continue here. Just looking at teacher talk in the classroom, and as I said, we're inclined to talk too much. Yunan says it's good for teachers to talk, but if we're talking all the time and not giving the student the target language, which is English in the classroom, and speaking Xhosa, isiZulu, or another language, when we're depriving our students of hearing the live target language. We can use some phrases in the other language, but we shouldn't have the whole lessons speaking Xhosa and all our instructions coming through in that language. He also says we mustn't give excessive explanations and instructions in the classroom, because this also restricts student talk severely. So to try and control the amount of talking we do, especially if it comes to explanations or instructions. If we talk too much, we also dominate the class as teachers, and this also limits student talk. And it's important for them to talk rather than us, because this is how they learn language proficiency, to encourage our students to talk rather than let us take platform all the time, like I am. Harmer in 2000 said, teachers should try and maximize student talk because these are the best lessons. So to have your instructions, but also use group work, questioning, and any kind of other kind of participation, learner-centered type activity, think, pair, share, to encourage the students to talk in your classroom. Do we teachers talk too much and listen too little? I think sadly we do. Right, I'm going to look at questions now, and there are three kinds of questions that we often use in the classroom, which might encourage more talking or less talking from our students. The first kind of question is a close or display type of question. This kind of question is the answer which is already known to the teachers and often to the students as well. So if I ask the class, what is the opposite of up in English? They will know it's down. So they know the answer and I know the answer. What is the effect of this? Is that they're just going to give me a short little answer like yes or no. And they're not going to really use genuine communication within the classroom situation. So if all my questions are, what page? And they say page 21. What chapter? And they say chapter 9. They're just repeating things that they know and I know, and they're not really using the language. So the major purpose of this kind of question is to extract knowledge from the learners, which is already known to the teacher and which they may have recently learned. So we might use this kind of question to check on what they know. So if they were doing antonyms, we might give them a whole list of display questions on opposites. Okay. There's another type. It's called an open question or referential question. This kind of question is, I don't know the answer as a teacher. So this is a different kind of question that I could ask in the classroom. And this might require the student to answer in a full and comprehensive way. For instance, I might ask them, why don't you do your homework? Why is your book not here? And I don't know the answer. And they will have to explain this to me. Why are you late again? And this forces them to give a lengthy response, which encourages them to use the language. It prompts them to use their viewpoints and life experiences to answer this question, and I don't know the answer. I've got to wait for them to tell me the answer. And this is not factual or text-embedded type of information. This is a communicative response, which is real communication, which I'm trying to get from my students. So remember, when you're asking questions, try and give referential questions, answers to which you don't know. Why did you answer that? Why did you choose that as the correct answer or the wrong answer? And to get other information from them. The third kind of question is what we call elicitation questions. These are questions such as what is a sentence, a verb, an audience. So I'm extracting information directly from the learners, and I'm helping the learner to discover and understand something by asking these questions. Elicitation, I'm trying to elicit information from them to help them understand what we're doing in this section. Okay. What about teacher feedback on performance? When your students have answered a question, what do you respond? Are we going to praise them or correct them? How are we going to answer them when they've responded to our questions? Remember, we're trying to motivate them and to encourage them to speak more. So we can either be silent, which I don't think is a very good response. We can praise them for what they've said, or we can give them a comment. Right. Bunin categorizes feedback into positive and negative feedback. Negative feedback is when I repeat the student's response with a rising intonation. So you say a verb is a naming word. All right, which tells the student that it is incorrect. Or do I give them a positive response, which is good, okay, all right, fine. And he calls this a romantic type of positive feedback. He calls it romantic because it's not telling the student anything really. It's not telling them why it's correct. And this is what he calls effective feedback. When I say, good, that answer is correct because you correctly named a verb as a doing word, or you correctly identified the punctuation for indirect or direct speech. So you're encouraging them to see why the answer is correct. And that gives them a sense of motivation and pride. So he says positive feedback is excellent, and it tells the students they have performed correctly, which is good, and also motivates them. So positive feedback is always good, but give them a reason why it is positive. Okay, amount of teacher talk. On average, the study found that in a 45-minute period, teachers talk for 36 minutes. That's quite a lot. And students for a little measly 9 minutes. We use 80% of teaching time, 70 to 80 is okay, and students 19%. So why do teachers speak so much in the classroom? And according to the study, it's because of classroom practices. Because we're trying to control the class, so we speak a lot. We're trying to interpret text for them, so we speak a lot. We're trying to transfer information into their brains, much like this, so we speak a lot. All the reasons why we actually speak a lot, instead of allowing the students to determine the answers or work out things themselves, we are talking the whole time, like I'm doing. The study showed that a teacher in this study asked 70 questions. 39 were display, elicitation was 50%, and the what question was only 8. 8 of them answered 11%. Right, so they were the maximum with elicitation and referential were the minimum. These findings indicate the teacher asked questions, the display questions, which are already known to the teacher. So teachers are maybe only asking questions which they know the answers to, and they should maybe become a bit more daring and ask questions for which they might not know the answers to. Because the referential will prompt learners to provide longer, syntactically complex responses to their questions. Okay, wait time. How long do we wait for our students to answer? This is quite important. According to the study, some teachers only wait 1 second. What can this first student answer if you've only given them 1 minute, 1 second to answer a question? They'll be demotivated and won't even try. They went up from 1, 2 to 3 to 6 seconds. 6 seconds is not really long either. So you have to learn practices to enable students to answer the question by not putting pressure of time on them. Say to them, okay, this is your question. You and a friend are going to work out the answer, and I'm going to come back to you later. Take the pressure off them, give them a chance to answer the question. The study found the teacher did this twice over, and most of the time the students couldn't answer the question. So you need to find out platforms on how to encourage students to answer questions so they can feel motivation and get praise and know that they've achieved something. So teachers often don't wait very long for the answers. A study found that you are more inclined to give guys or boys more time to answer and less time for girls. I wonder why. Right, according to the CAPS document, there are 4 basic steps for effective presentations. This is the more formal side of it. A presentation is when you present a topic to an audience of more than 1 person. So I suppose if you call someone in a break to do their oral with you, it's not really an audience, but sometimes you need to do that to build confidence. You'll include these steps. You'll have a strategy to create a specific topic for a specific audience. You will have a structured presentation to develop a flowing presentation. Your style is as important as what you say. So how audible are you? How well prepared are you? What are your slides like? What is your projection like? What is your pace like? And how do you handle questions at the end? Right, so your introduction will often need a hook to get their attention. This is also for lesson plans. You need that introduction, that hook to get their initial impression of what you're going to be talking about. And this enables you to get rapport and gain attention with the class. I did a class lesson with summary writing, and the topic was good singing. So I asked them what is a talent, what talents do they have, and I got drawing, soccer, rugby, singing eventually. But their attention was there, and they told me why they had that talent. I don't sing, I can't sing, so it's not one of my talents. So within this hook, you will try to refer to the occasion, why you're asking them this question. Give them a personal story about this problem or this issue. quote authority who knows a lot about it. Might be Mandela, maybe someone else that you know, Trump, anyone else, Boris Johnson, Theresa May, whoever might have information about this topic, or asking you focused question. This is quite a nice way to start an oral. What do you think about the coronavirus? What is your opinion? Do you think it's going to be an issue in South Africa? And this might encourage them to give more attention to what you're going to speak about. Your presentation style is your personal style and the confidence you are feeling as a person, which is more important and sometimes than the actual content, because they're often not going to remember what you've been speaking about. So good presenters will realize that you have to be both intellectual and emotional. You've got to be warm and friendly, funny sometimes when you are presenting. You have to organize your ideas and maintain the attention of the audience all the time. I've got a little YouTube here, which will be on the PowerPoint that I'm going to upload, which shows you quite nicely good and bad presentations. There are, I think, 9 examples of bad presentations and 9 examples of good presentations, and some quite nicely, quick and easy. So I would really advise you to go and have a look at that. And then you can get a hand, a big audience will clap when you are finished. There's another little activity that you can do. The YouTube link is also there. It's looking at body language in presentations, looking at the importance of hand gestures, and they go through different kinds of hand gestures, and it's up for you to decide what do these mean. What does the steeple mean? Okay, if someone does that, if they raise their eyebrows, if they lean in, if different facial expressions they might have, the head tilt, any kind of movement up and down. What do these actually mean if people are speaking, and to try and encourage these in your classes, to use these to make their speaking more effective. Right, the last point here is on handling objections and questions, and you should tell your audience before you start on how you're going to handle questions. So you might say in the introduction, please feel to interrupt me if you have questions, or you may say there'll be time for questions at the end of the presentation, or you may say I will answer questions after the presentation. So they will know that they can ask questions and when they can ask them and how you will answer them. Your last slide, always make it look like it's part of the presentation. Don't end on that horrible black slide. Have a final slide which ends it all off. Thank you for your time. Any questions? Enjoy the rest of your day. Coming to the end of the line, anything like that, which will show them that the presentation is now over. And finally, my last slide. Keep things simple. I think today it was quite complex with load shedding and going down. Talks often too complex and people can't remember half the things you say. So don't worry about it. So they're not going to remember anything at the end of the day, but they must probably remember how you spoke. Do not expect your audience to remember anything. They're not going to remember anything, so don't expect that. So avoid jargon and abbreviations, especially if it's a field that you're talking about. Avoid things like ESL and SLA and LA and whatever it is. They're not going to remember those things. And yes, what is the time now? It's 5 minutes to 6, so I'm going to stop. Stop before your time is up, because they can't wait to get out. There we are, stop. So I'm going to stop now. This will be all uploaded on ECI, and I'm sure Josh is going to make a good deal of fixing this all up for us electronically. And I'll see you next week. We can look at from communicative language teaching. And have a good evening, and I'll see you later. Always email me if you've got a problem. Thanks then. See you later. Ciao. Bye.